And welcome to another edition of TryKnoxville.com. Mike Roberts along for the ride once again. And wow, the weather's starting to improve. We've got hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, an occasional shower now and then all the time. But we don't do weather forecasts around here. We just have some fun and get to know people in Knoxville and promote Knoxville as we always do. We are broadcasting from the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, and it's almost race time here in the Valley. Coming up on April 17th is actual racing night. April 16th is practice night. Make sure you check out the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum and also buy yourself a raffle ticket to get a Corvette, which I want the Corvette.
You want to buy me a ticket?
No, I can't really afford mine right now. So, Cal Keller with us right now, and you are the school resource officer for the City of Knoxville / Knoxville School District.
That is correct.
We've known each other a long time, but I always have to do this, and just to get people out there to know you. Jump in the Wayback Machine, as I call it. And again, I hate using that terminology because I go farther back on the way back than you do by long shots. So where were you born and raised, sir?
So I was born in Marshalltown, and I was raised in Garwin, Iowa. Okay. So that's in Tama County, just north of the Meskwaki Settlement Casino there.
I got some friends up in Gladbrook. I got a cousin up in Marshalltown, so I'm kind of familiar with that area.
Yep. It's a good area of the state to grow up, and it's kind of quiet from the area that I grew up. So it was kind of just it's really a rural upbringing that I had.
It's probably you got family up there still living up there?
Yeah, my mom still lives in Garwin, and I have a brother and his family that lives up in State Center.
That is like National Weather Center disaster zone up in that area for the last 4 years now?
Oh yeah, yep. They've had the derecho this last summer, and I believe it was in 2011 or 2012 they had a similar to what Attica had several years ago. Right. They had that go through that area, specifically Garwin, that kind of wiped out some buildings and homes and most of the trees. Yeah. I just remember all the childhood trees that I remember seeing, in that town. Most of them are gone now. Yeah, Marshalltown had the tornado, I think. Let me get my head on straight here because Marshalltown prints my newspaper. And I think it went through in, I want to say 17 or 18. Maybe. No, because 2 years ago. It was 2 years before. Yes. Yeah, because they're still fixing the courthouse. Yep, so it was the same day 19. As the Pella one. Yeah, 19. Yep. And literally, and I bring this up because last year's storm, which I didn't, down here it wasn't that bad. But again, I called up the publisher up there, and I was waiting on my paper to be printed, and I said, "Are we okay up there?" And she goes, "No." She goes, "It's worse than the tornado was." Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, wow. And it was. I went up there and it was like, holy cow. Yep. I remember driving up there just later that week and knowing it had a chance to really clean things up. And all the co-ops, all the corn was flat. I mean, I've never seen anything like that for that many miles and miles. I mean, literally the whole county was just trashed. Yep. Yeah, it was sad to see. I mean, just the drive from Knoxville up to Marshalltown, you saw several fields even down this way that were damaged that you could tell. Exactly. Let's keep on going back, though, and talk about growing up. Where did you go to school at then? GMG. It's called Green Mountain Garwin. Okay. It's Garwin is where I was born. The school was there, and then they decided they wanted to join up with another smaller school, Green Mountain. Green Mountain's actually in Marshall County. It's a little bit further west of Garwin. So I started out a couple years when it was just in Garwin, and then we joined up, and I finished elementary school in Green Mountain. And then our middle school and high school were together in Garwin in one building. So that was where I spent the rest of my school. What was your graduating class? How many did you have in your graduating class? We had 38, I believe, was the number. Small. Big class. Huge class. Something about those kids, when we went through school all together from kindergarten on up, you just know everything. Right. Good and bad. Oh, yeah. About each other. Small town. Yep. That's the number one reason. My daughter moved back here a couple of years ago, and that was the number one reason she came home. She goes, "You know what's going on before anybody else does, Dad. I want you for my kids." But cool. I like that. I like that. Siblings? Yeah, I have 5 brothers. Holy cow. And your mom still claims you? Yeah, she does. Wow. She said they were probably easier than if it would have been all 6 girls. No kidding. Play sports? Yep, I played football. Okay. That was my main focus. I enjoyed doing that through middle school and high school. We had a state championship team in '99, or not state champion. We went to the playoffs. Right. We couldn't quite make it to the state championship, but that was the furthest anyone's made it for a long time in little old Green Mountain Garwin school, so we were pretty proud of that. That's a big deal, though. Yep, when you get that level, if you will. I mean, yes, a championship is nice, but that level, I mean, it's a big accomplishment because, like you said, you don't have a lot of
kids in your school, a lot of students in your school, and then you have to have the talent to go along with it. And I'm guessing a lot of old farm boys too. I mean,
Yep.
that probably helped out a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. We had some big boys.
Right.
Yep. And it was nice. I enjoyed going to a smaller school like that and playing, being able to play football because you got to play everything. I mean, it kind of stunk at the time because you were just so tired throughout the whole game because you're playing offense, defense, and special teams.
Right.
But it was great though because you got to just experience it all. As opposed to bigger schools, you may just be on offense or defense and maybe get to do special teams, here and there. It's just, that was nice just growing up because you got to learn so much, of the different positions, offense and defense, and learning from the other guys. And we swapped out a lot just because guys would get hurt or whatever, we're shorthanded. So we'd have to bring freshmen up even to play varsity. So
were they 8-man then?
we were 11.
11?
So we had
Because they're 8-man now, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had the choice between my junior and senior year to switch to 8-man.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, those of us that were going to be seniors, we were pushing for 8-man because we were thinking, this would be really good because we're just not big enough to be competitive now.
Right.
So I always thought, like if we went down to schools our size, because we were playing schools that were bigger than us,
Sure.
who had more guys out for the team than what we had. And it's just, we knew that if we could go to 8-man, it would have been a heck of a lot better. We could have competed a little bit better. And just the fact that it was a different type of football feel, like we wanted to try it out. But
Right.
It was voted down, so we still played 11-man our senior year.
That's not a bad idea, and I'll tell you why. There's a lot of running in 8-man football.
I'm sure.
Ton of running. I covered Melcher, went down to Murray for the very first Melcher 8-man game. And just on the sideline shooting it with the newspaper I was with at the time, I mean, just back and forth. There's a lot of running in 8-man football. So,
Yep.
You can run. I know that. But, I mean, as a kid, you may not want to run that much. So,
Probably not, yeah. I think as an adult, I probably enjoy running better than I did as a kid.
Yeah. Where'd you go after high school?
So I started out at Marshalltown Community College.
Okay.
My aspirations was I wanted to be an accountant. I enjoyed business.
Wow, left turn.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I enjoyed the business and the accounting class in high school.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what I was really looking into. I was really interested in that. I like crunching numbers and figuring things out and finding that, that bottom line, like there was always like you can figure out where something's missing. It just came easy to me. So I enjoyed doing that. And so I started at Marshalltown doing that. I went there for about a year.
Okay.
Then I met somebody that was up in the Iowa Falls area, so I moved up there and transferred to the Marshalltown Community College, sister college, which is Ellsworth Community College.
Yep.
They work together. And so I started out doing some more business stuff up there and some classes, and I ended up dropping out of college because I wanted money.
Yep.
And I wasn't getting enough off of loans or anything to really do anything with, and which was a mistake. I wish I would have stayed in, but I think it taught me some important life goals, and this is something I talk to kids now about too, is don't go to school just because that's the thing, that you're expected to do. So I had quit college and then I went and worked at a factory for about a year and a half. And it was a great place to work. I learned a lot, did some manual labor and just learned some good life goals and life skills working with people that I've never been around, just the kind of rough and tough guys that worked at this factory. And I learned a lot of things. And that kind of motivated me, like, I don't want to work at a factory the rest of my life. That's what my dad did.
Sure.
And he never really talked about it much. I knew it put food on the table and it was a very good job for him, but I didn't feel like it was for me. Like I wanted something more, just instead of just standing at the assembly line, all day long. That's what I did. And so I decided I want to go back to school, and I'd always had the dream of being a law enforcement officer. So that's what I decided. I'm just going to take some criminal justice classes and see what this is like.
Sure.
And the instructor there at Ellsworth at the time was a retired, he was with the Air Force. He was military police in the Air Force, and I'm not sure what title he retired at. So he instructed there now after being the chief of police of Waterloo for a few years. Okay. So he had some good stuff, military
good history
to talk about. Yeah. He'd been stationed all over the world at different bases and stuff, and then just being the chief of Waterloo for a few years before he retired from there, just had some good information. And we talked quite a bit in the classroom, outside of the classroom, just about the realistic of things in law enforcement, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, that'd be great. You know, you see the movies and shows, like I want to be on the SWAT team. I want to do cool things like that. And so, you know, he explained it. It's not like you're going to get hired on as a part of the SWAT team or something, you know, and he just kind of made it a little easier to understand, you know, and especially like to other kids in the class that we had, like CSI and some of those shows were popular. And, you know, that's what a lot of the kids wanted to do. They wanted to be, you know, CSI, crime scene investigators. They wanted to be, you know, do the scientific part of it and stuff. And
you can get there, but let's be honest, they really start you off more like Mayberry RFD. You have the one bullet and here's the gun and go write tickets.
Right. Yep.
You know?
You start out very low, and
Yeah.
I mean, you got to learn the basics, and that's just something that, you know, when you're in high school or early on starting out in college, you just don't realize or understand that, you know, you just can't go in and do all those fun, cool things that you want to see or do on TV, you know, that
Sure.
it just takes time to build up. So that was good just to hear, you know, like, you know, just you're going to be starting out, you're going to be patrol.
Yeah, it's a good reality check for you guys.
Yes, it was.
Really
Yeah,
is.
it really was. And so that really made me kind of more interested in it again. I started applying for a few places after while I was still in college, I guess I started applying a few different places. Cedar Rapids Police Department was kind of the big one that I first started at, and I made it to the final 10 people that was left, and I didn't get selected, which is fine. You know, that's what they say is you apply at several different places. You're not always going to choose one, especially if you don't have any experience as a law enforcement officer. You're not certified by the state of Iowa yet or any other state.
Well, Cedar Rapids is kind of aiming for the fences too. I mean, they've got a big department up there.
Yes, and they have their own academy too.
Right.
So I was kind of interested in that part of it. But that was okay. When I didn't get that, I started just looking at other places. Meanwhile, I moved back to Garwin and started working at the casino there, doing slot attendant work, and that was good because it gave me another skill, I guess, of just being able to communicate with people. You know, a part of our job was to talk to people, see how they're doing, help them with their machine or, you know, payouts, whatever they've got going on. If we didn't have anything going on, we would just talk to people and, you know, make them feel welcome and things like that, and, you know, strike up conversations, especially with the high rollers in the high roller room. You know, you go and you talk with them, schmooze them up a little bit and get them to talk about whatever. And it was just a good skill for me to learn to do, because before that I never worked a job or anything like that where I had to just learn to, you know, talk about anything with
it improves
anybody.
Communication skills.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely. So that was good.
So where was the first time with the badge then?
So the first time was here.
Okay.
I applied a few
That's what I
different
wondered.
places, and I got hired on down at Knoxville in 2007. I had first applied down here in 2006 and didn't get that position, but in 2007 I was able to get the position. And I'd always thought, you know, I didn't know anything about Knoxville. I knew things about Tama County, and I always thought, you know, if start down here, that's what I'd always been told by mentors is you get hired somewhere.
Right.
They're going to hire you on. They're going to send you to the police academy. Then you're certified. Then you can go anywhere in Iowa. And I always thought, well, maybe I'd move closer to home or something like that with the sheriff's office up there or Marshalltown or something like that. I had applied at both of those before I came to Knoxville and didn't pursue anything else with those two jobs. You know, and just the first couple of years here, it was interesting because I liked living in a town that I was working in and got to know people. You know, it was not like when I lived in other towns besides Garwin where I didn't know anybody. I didn't work in that town. I didn't have any friends or whatever in that town. I didn't know anybody. It was just a little different. So as a police officer, obviously you get to meet all kinds of people in the town, in the community.
Every night.
Yep. Good and bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, you start to build those relationships with people, and you start to see the good things in the community that you're working in. And that's what's really made me want to stay here, you know, as long as I have. It's just, I can't see myself working anywhere else this far along in my law enforcement career.
You know, and this show is Try Knoxville. We, you know, give people reasons to stay and to come here and try things out besides the racetrack, besides tourism, but just it's a good community to live in. I can't stress that enough. And I remember you coming in, and I remember like, okay, this is going to be a stepping stone. This guy's got bigger dreams. You're kind of rooted in here now, buddy. You're stuck.
Yep,
You know,
I agree.
you got the family life going on and everything else too.
Yep.
So,
You know, and I love it here. The people, the school district, the businesses that come together. and we could talk about it later, but all the things that I've been involved with, the different events or whatever, when we're trying to get help to put on these events or volunteers and things, the people are out there and the businesses are willing to help us. It's just amazing to see that.
Fast forward then, because you weren't with the department very long when this opportunity, I think, you were 5 or 6 years you were probably there?
About 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
About 7, yeah.
And a new opportunity besides patrolling comes up.
Yep.
And it is going back to school.
Yep.
Literally and figuratively speaking. With the position you're in right now, first of all, when this opportunity came about, what was the first thoughts? Because let's be honest, the school resource officer is about as far away from SWAT as you can get.
Correct.
Hopefully, you know.
Definitely is.
So when that offer came to you, did you think, okay, I'll just do this for a couple of years and keep on moving up the ladder, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, so when the position first became available, I really thought hard about it. At that time, I was working nights, and I enjoyed working nights. I enjoyed the things that we, as police officers, that we get to deal with on nights. It's a little faster pace and some things going on, sometimes excitement and stuff. That was a year that I had my first son, and I was really considering something different. I wanted to stay in law enforcement, but I was really considering something different to get a better schedule,
Sure,
or something like that for family. When this opportunity came up, I really thought hard on it. Like this can be a great experience on getting something different. I'll be working different hours. I can do something different within the law enforcement field that could be more positive. I enjoyed working nights and dealing with some of the stuff that officers do when they mostly work night shifts, but a lot of it can be negative and draining on you mentally, and physically, just, the stress and things. So there's several factors there that I kind of weighed, and I really was interested in the position, after thinking about it more. Just the positive lifestyle change that I think it would have brought to me, changing from working nights. If anyone's worked nights, obviously, it's hard on you. It's hard on your body. It's hard on your family life. So I wanted that change to see how things would go. And initially I thought, yeah, we'll see how it goes for a couple of years. I didn't think I'd be in it for this long.
Right.
I figured someone else would have wanted the position by then. And that's the way it works at Knoxville. If you can do the position for a few years, and then if another officer wants it, they get a chance at it. So I always prepared myself for that, that would happen. It's lucked out that no one has been interested enough to want it. There's been some guys that have talked about it, but I think as far as I'm still involved in it and want to be involved with it, they're okay with that, and no one wants to boot me out of it, let's say.
This started years ago, I believe, and Harv will correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was in elementary, I know Harv Sprofka was the liaison officer, I think they called it at the time.
Yep.
And then I think that kind of faded away, but then Randy Pooyer came in and did it for a little bit and worked its way up to what you do now. There's a huge difference. And Harv, I apologize, because really and truly the only thing I remember as an elementary kid was you coming and showing us how to get off a bus all right. Safety drills, which is done differently now anyway. But you guys developed a whole new system of programs that I think makes it easier to communicate, perhaps. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I am. With the students. They get to know you a little bit more personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, with the liaison programs, I know I believe it was Harv, and then I think Sam.
I forgot Sam. Yeah, I forgot Sam.
Maybe did it after him. Of course, this was way before my time.
Oh
here,
yeah, I was not very old then either. So.
And then Randy Pooyer had done that, and then Darryl Brown had done that. So when we started the SRO program originally, it was all grant money that kind of got it going. So that was nice just to get that started. Now you look around and several school districts have an SRO program. What we look for now is we want our SROs, the school resource officers, to go through training, not just be put in that position. That's the way, when I first started out, that's what I was just put into that position.
Right.
Without any background knowledge of, how does a police officer work in the schools. So the National Association of School Resource Officers have developed training, basic schools, essentially, that you go to and you can receive a little bit more training and the ins and outs and what officers are going to deal with in the schools. I took that my second year as SRO, so I already, I had a lot of experience working with the schools already, but I didn't understand some of it yet. The administrators had helped me quite a bit, just learning through the courts and whatever, when things came up, and what I could and what I couldn't do in the schools. That basic course really taught me a lot. For example, FERPA. FERPA is basically the school version of HIPAA.
Okay.
It protects the kids' rights. It's one thing that I never knew anything about until I took that basic class, that, those kids have rights, they're protected in school just like you would with medical rights of release of information and things. So it taught me a lot on that. But back to the school, going through that, we talked about doing different programs and things with the kids that we can engage them and get them involved with us. So then I started doing more research after that. We started things like Adopt the Cop. Mm-hmm. We did that for a few years, where basically a classroom would adopt one of our local police officers, and they would just be a pen pal type thing. And then if the officers had time, they would go to the classroom and actually get to see the kids. So that was nice. And a part of why I wanted to do that was because all the kids already knew who I was. I wanted them to know who the other officers were, because they could see these officers every day and not even realize who they are. And so I thought that was a nice way to kind of introduce them, let them know that there's more than just Officer Keller or Chief Lasada at the time in this city working. So,
is that a good way to keep not just communication going, but keeping the stereotype down of, oh, it's the cops, hide?
Definitely.
Get to know them.
Yep, definitely. And just a real tidbit about that real quick.
Yeah.
Whenever we have new kids that move to our school district that came from a school that didn't have an SRO, they're nervous sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
They really are, because they just haven't been used to that. And all the other kids, they're, this is just a normal day. Officer Keller's here, or maybe another officer's in the building with me, or walking through the building. It's just a part of what they know now. So they're not fearful. They know that we're there to help them, or if they want to come up and talk to us, we're there for them.
There's challenges always when you wear the uniform.
Yep.
With adults, we can talk about this all day long. We had Sergeant Varas on. Of course, he did drug task force for a while. Now he's new K-9. Challenges with a student. I try not to use the word kid. It's just habit. But challenges with a student, you're not just dealing with the student, but you're also dealing with the parents.
Correct.
And sometimes, dare I say, you've got that fine line to deal with both, because the parents don't always see it your way neither.
That is correct.
How do you deal with stuff like that? That's just
right.
The stressors.
Yep. And it is stressful.
Yeah.
Because you feel like what you're going to talk to the parent about, that whatever their child may have done, whether it was a behavior thing or whatever, you expect the parent to be on your side with things.
Right.
Especially if the child's in the wrong, if they did something like that. Most of the time the parents they're great to work with, and it's occasional that you get a parent that wants to question what's going on in the school or how you're handling a situation as a police officer in the schools. And so that's hard too, because I don't want to seem like I'm just placed there to be another disciplinary figure, because
right.
I'm not. I'm there to help build relationships and help build trust with the police, and however we can connect and through programs and do whatever. I don't want it to always just be viewed as I'm only called to that school, or I'm only called to deal with your child, when they've gotten in trouble or something.
Yeah, it's not a black and white handcuffs. Sure it is. It's more of a solution.
Right. And like I said, most of the time, parents are really easy to work with. The kids will be harder to work with sometimes, just because they feel like, that they're going to get away with things because that's maybe the way they've gotten away with things at home, or that's how things have been at home.
Hey, I'll be the first one to admit, when I was a kid, I used that word, hey, I'm a minor. I'm a minor, you know?
Yep.
Doesn't mean squat.
Yep. And kids know that. Kids know that, I have limitations. Teachers have limitations. The principals have limitations these days. It's not back like in the 80s where you had to bring out the paddle or something on a kid, things have changed.
I'm
And
glad you said the 80s because it was a little bit older than that for me. So
70s.
yeah, elementary wise.
Right.
I mentioned Harv, so I mean,
Yeah.
do the math there. So, and I feared the paddle thing. Knock on wood, didn't have to happen. I feared my parents finding out. And,
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, definitely. And that's big. I think that's a big change too now,
Right.
and I've talked to several parents, who they want to do more. They want to be able to discipline their children at home, but they struggle with what's the right way. And I've had to explain to several parents, those electronics, all those things, take those away.
Yeah.
That's what been the biggest result of getting what they need done at home with their kids is if they take the electronics away. I remember one case, and most of the time the parents are just wanting advice. Like, what more can I do? I don't want to get in trouble, but what more can I do?
Right.
And I said, well, you still have to discipline your child. You don't always have to physically discipline your child. That's okay. You don't have to do that. But you have to discipline them somehow, and taking electronics away or things at home that they don't need.
Yeah.
It's not a necessity.
Change their routine.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's been a biggest thing. With this one mother, I'd worked with her several times. I've been to her house several times to just try to get her kid to go to school. And he's a bigger kid, middle school age kid that just didn't want to go to school. And I remember talking with her about it one day with just taking away electronics. He stayed up all night playing video games, of course. Some of these kids, that's what we see, unfortunately. And I think she had brought up, what am I supposed to do? Take the Wi-Fi with me when I go to work? And I said, I'd do it. Mm-hmm. Because he's not going to stay at home playing video games. He can't.
Right.
He won't be able to have internet access, and take their phones away or take their Xbox away. Do what you have to do to get your kid to go to school and respect you, when it comes to that stuff. And that's been the biggest positive thing I've seen, that, parents can just realize that they can just take that stuff away.
You bring up electronics. I'm going to use that to open up the next door. As I mentioned earlier, city council has to approve this. School board has to approve this. Is there a contract involved with this then between the two governments then? Is it like a multi-year, 3-year, 2-year, 5-year? What is it? Or is it annual?
I'm not sure if it's annual now. I think it started out as a 2-year or 3-year before, but I think the last few years, I think it's just been a year. But it is agreement between the city and the school district to work together on that.
They have to work together. They have to figure out funding on it, and they have to agree on the job itself. I bring this up because just down the road, and I use electronics to open up social media. We broadcast on social media. All right, everything's done on social media. And I try not to stay political with this show at all. I don't like it because I'm trying to promote Knoxville. And this is how I'm going to use it this way, because we still have a safe zone. We still have you. Just down the road, 38 minutes away, Des Moines, Iowa, they have got rid of their program. And I don't get it at all. And I realize the pressures of defunding and the protesting and everything that happened last year has played a role into this. That's dangerous. It's very dangerous. I'm not talking just for Des Moines. I'm talking about for Knoxville, Iowa. I like seeing you every day when I'm around the school, because it's that, hey, a face I know, a face I can trust. Not that we don't have good administration in our school system. We do. Not that we don't have good teachers, janitors, the whole shooting match. But I bring up shooting for a reason. If it comes down to my granddaughters are getting ready to be in the system, being protected by someone with a chalkboard and a pencil. I say chalkboard. I just dated myself right there.
Yeah, you did.
Exactly. All right. But if that comes down to that, no.
Yep.
That's not good enough. And people in Des Moines need to realize that. People in these larger metros that are defunding right now and getting rid of this program, I fear our community or any community our size is going to follow that lead. Mm-hmm. Dangerous. Plain and simple. And you know what? They're like, oh, Robert, you back the blue. You're damn right I do. I do every day. And it's not just so you can have a job. If you're not a school resource officer, you're going to be back patrolling. You do it every summer.
Yep.
All right. You'll still have a job. This is our safety we're talking about for our kids now.
Yep.
How do you fight that? I mean, because there are those people out there. Not saying our council doesn't, not saying our school board doesn't, not saying parents do it.
Yep.
But there are those people on social media that light it up every time they can.
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
And I agree with that. You know, the majority of the people, I think even in the Des Moines area, still wanted the school resource officers.
Yeah, it was politics, all it was.
Yep. And, you know, and it comes down to, you know, the small group of people who are going to just be the loudest and try to bring up the biggest points that, you know, may or may not be factors in the decision making, but it's going to speak volumes for that, you know. And I know they had a student, I think a student vote or a survey or something like that done up there. I'd love to know the results of that to see if that was what really played into the decision or not. But when it comes down to it, why are we going to let kids decide if we should have a SRO in the schools or not?
Yeah.
It should be the parents in the community, because those are the ones who are going to worry about the kids. Of course, when I was in high school, I don't want a police officer walking the halls around me, you know, whether I'm a good or a bad kid, you know, it's just a part of it. And that's the thing that they're going to miss out right now is just those relationships. You know, I've talked to SROs up in the Des Moines area who they knew the kids in you know, Lincoln High School, for example, a huge school. They knew a lot of the kids. All the kids knew exactly who that SRO was. Yeah. I talk to kids now who have gone to Lincoln, and I could ask them, who was your SRO when you went through there? And they tell me, Officer Deb.
Good, bad, or indifferent, they get to know you.
Yes.
You've probably had that happen. I mean, you've been 7 years in the business. I'm sure you've had to do something, file charges or something. It's come back and it's like, okay, is it going to haunt me or does it benefit me? What happens? You know?
Yep. And yeah, sometimes the kids will be mad at you forever. You know, their entire school career, they're not going to be happy with you. But most of the other ones, they're like, I think the other one I was talking about earlier with just a bomb threat. You know, the kid went to Eldora and we get along just great now. You know, he's an adult now. And he understands, you know, it's just a part of the job, you know, just as a principal has a job and sometimes they're not going to always be friends with the kids, or a teacher's always going to be friends with the kids, you know. We think back to when we were in school, we had teachers we liked, we had teachers we didn't like, you know, we knew officers we liked, we knew officers we didn't like, but SROs strive to build those relationships continuously, even if you have to arrest that kid, you know, to try to keep it a positive experience.
What gets me, and I know I'm picking on the Metro up here right now, but they're the latest ones that have done it locally. We use we're saving money or we're moving positions around and doing such. What's a kid's life worth?
Right.
You know, I don't know what our program is down here for the budget for the year for that. I couldn't tell you. You do you know it? I'm assuming you do. Chief Fuller probably.
Right. Chief Fuller would probably know the numbers better than I would, but.
You know, but what's it worth?
Right. When it comes down to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
One life, one bomb threat. What's it all worth for safety?
Yep. You know, and there's a good counter argument to that, and I can see both sides of it, but I understand my side of it and why I would defend it. But they say, well, if we don't have an officer in the schools, we can still send officers to that school if they need an officer, correct?
Sure. Response time's how long?
Right. Response time's going to be slower.
Yep.
And do they know that officer? Does the administrators know that officer? Do the kids know that officer? Do they know what to expect on that decision that officer is going to make? You know, working so long in the schools now, the administrators, we all know each other very well. You know, in school, outside of school, we talk about personal stuff with each other. You know, we all know each other. We know what to expect from each other. And that's been one of the biggest things working with just the staff too. You know, I know what they're going to contact me for, what kinds of things they're going to contact me for, and they know exactly how I'm going to handle those things or what they can expect out of that. And if it's something new, we haven't come across that, we'll discuss it and talk about it. But a patrol officer, they're not going to be able to just go into the school and have a meeting for an hour with an administrator and talk about, well, how am I going to handle this situation? I've never handled this before. You know, is this a school problem or is this a law enforcement matter? Is it both? What? You know, I don't know can I interview kids in school or can I not? You know,
you probably know every door, every exit, every possibility that goes on and involved in a higher stress level situation of all of our schools here in town.
Right.
You take a patrolman, and I'm not picking on anybody in general, but who's been on the job for 2 or 3 months, barely knows the street addresses, and now you're going to put him in a building and say, all right, we have to do this evacuation, or we have to go to this situation. You guys are trained very well. It'll figure itself out, but it takes a longer time to do that.
Yep. I would agree with that.
You've delayed the whole response again.
Yep.
Again, safety is everything. I thank God every day that I stayed in a small community. I will be the first one to tell you, I got my diploma and I headed to Minneapolis. I mean, it wasn't a blink of an eye. Boom, gone. And 2 weeks later, I was back.
Yep.
Because holy cow, that's a big city.
Yep. Whole new world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Knoxville isn't so bad after all. Been
Right.
here ever since. I invite everybody to come check it out. You know, I always pose this as the last question. I'm going to throw this one at you too, because you're staying, you're here, you're rooted. Why should people try Knoxville?
I think the community. I've worked with several different community boards and members on things, but if you want to be a part of the community, you want to know your neighbors and know the people that work here and live here, this is a great place to do it. There's plenty of opportunities to do that. There's things to do here. You just have to look for it sometimes. I know we hear that, but that there's nothing to do here, little old Knoxville, but there's plenty of things to do here, especially if you have a family.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the best communities I've ever lived in to raise a family in. I come from a really small town where everybody knows each other, obviously, but Knoxville is one of those where, almost everybody, some things about everybody,
Right.
but it's a peaceful place to live. We've got our crime just like everywhere else. You can't say that, that we have this problem or that problem and this place doesn't. Every place has.
Sure.
has
It's to
crime
what
problems.
level and what degree.
Yep, exactly right. And I like how, we have some great services around here. We have a lot of great things going for the city. It's growing. We've got some great things in the future coming here, and I look forward to retiring here as a police officer.
Long ways away, though.
Yes,
When we say
several
retirement.
years. Yes.
You have time to serve yet, as we say.
Yes.
I like the fact, and I'll bring this up one more time, that we are a smaller community, and even what your affiliation is, whether it be the R or the D behind your political views, when it comes to small town Iowa, especially Knoxville, we do it for the better part of the community. It's not necessarily a political move. I feel very safe around all the police officers. I know the kids. I've dealt with the kids on the school buses before. Mm-hmm. They talk about you. They know you. They see you. They wave you. And believe it or not, it's not bad.
Yep.
You've made a great impression. I appreciate your service, sir. And I'll be the first one to say, if anybody tries to take away our program, I'm going to fight the fight with you.
I appreciate it.
The safety of my grandkids. I got Keegan's in kindergarten next year. He's pre-K right now. He's kindergarten. He's in the system now. Two sisters not that far behind. Mm-hmm. So you dealing with things is a lot better than Grandpa dealing with things. All right.
I have to call Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. Hotline. So thanks for coming in. Hey, let's catch up again some other time too.
Will do. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Again, Kyle Keller, school resource officer on the show, and can't thank these guys enough for protecting us. And we'll catch everybody next time on Try Knoxville.